Hey, did you know that you can subscribe to our YouTube channel? Yeah, we can even get updates for SportsCenter apparently. Yeah, every week we're hard at work trying to pick subjects that we think are valuable for you that we can stream to you, because that's just, how we operate over here. Well, welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin Schwarzenberger. And hey, today we are going to be diving into RxJS. We have some superstar guests with us today, but before we say hey to them, let's say hey to our panelists that we've got today. Mike Brocky, how's it going, Mike?
Not too bad. That ESPN sound was actually my phone, but it's your fault because it was a notification about AngularAir going live on air.
Wait, your phone, your phone does ESPN notifications every time he says the words ESPN? That's really impressive.
I subscribe to that event.
This will be fun. We'll just keep saying that over and over again. All right, we also have Austin McDaniel with us today. Austin, what's going on?
What's up, guys? I was trying to come up with something witty of a RX reducer or something. I just couldn't. Sorry.
All the pandemonium around your funniness. Okay.
All right, you got a little bit of a peek at our special guest here. They know a little bit about RxJS stuff, and hey, look, they're hella punny, and that's a fact because it's on the internet, and that's got to be true. Look it up. We got Tracy Lee and Ben Lesh with us. How's it going?
Great, great. Are you trying to think of a pun right now?
I'm gonna punt on that.
You got to come up with something RX related. I could prescribe something for you.
Are you gonna observe me? As
Let's do that.
That's good. That's good.
I like how you guys combine latest and just both in front of one camera. That's pretty cool.
That is. We are combining latest, and we've got this lovely
broccoli.
Yeah.
The shield of broccoli.
It's the broccoli angular.
Broccoli's for the broccoli shoggoth.
Angular.
Proctangular. Brockangular.
I don't know. It's the Mike Brocky.
Let's make a shirt out of it.
I'm a Mike Brocky fan. That's fine.
I'm gonna have to try and turn that into an ASCII art and put it into an Easter egg in the CLI.
But for anyone that's watching this, Mike Brocky and I worked together. How long ago, Mike?
Oh, probably 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, at a contracting company in which I worked on a variety of things, including maintaining images on websites and other exciting things like that.
And you drew broccoli all over the place.
In fact, if anyone is watching this, turn your volume up and navigate to HADDADSINC.com, and you will.
You're going to crash their website.
Yeah, we're going to crash their servers.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, what's happening?
This is more traffic than we've ever gotten.
We have more than 10 people on our site at once.
Yeah, turn your volume up, though. That's the important part.
And you have to listen to the entire thing.
Yeah.
Entire.
I got to listen to that regularly. It was great.
That was Brocky singing, right?
Maybe in his what barbershop quartet, right?
I feel like broccoli's
From Skokie, Illinois.
You'd be like, I say H, I say H-A.
No. He gets into it.
I say. Does he dance?
Yeah.
Come on, broccoli. We can see you dance.
No, not to that song. There's no dancing to that song.
No.
I'm a little sad that we didn't get a panda one, though. Come on.
Okay. Well, next time we'll get a panda.
Next time, yeah. You got to earn your way in there, like Mike. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a logo, so hey, Austin and I, we'll just hang out logoless.
Yeah. Great. So,
all right,
did we introduce ourselves? Yeah, they introduced us. Okay.
We introduced you. Why don't you tell the couple people out there that might not know who you are a little bit about yourself?
Everyone knows who she is. I don't know if everybody knows who I am.
That's completely untrue. But thank you.
So this is Tracy.
This is Ben. This is the Ben Lesh. He also has his own hashtag, SoBenLesh. If you hashtag it, SoBenLesh will retweet you.
Yeah,
our friend Jay Phelps wrote it.
There's a bot.
There's a bot. We were like, who did this? And then we found out it was Jay.
Jay Phelps made it, and then he told me he doesn't know how to turn it off.
He doesn't know how to unsubscribe.
It's pretty good.
So Ben, you're the author of RxJS 5.
Yep.
And you're also the lead of RxJS.
I was the lead on the RxJS 5 project.
I'm doing a really bad job at it.
What is RxJS?
RxJS is reactive extensions for JavaScript, and what it is, it's reactive extensions started in .NET, So the idea is that a guy named Eric Meyer and some other folks at Microsoft were looking for a way to do like push-based reactive programming, and they kind of invented, I don't know if they invented a new type or they kind of pulled a new type out of iterators. They kind of pulled an iterator inside out, and they made this type called an observable. And an observable, it basically gives you a set of events over time. And when you have a set of something, you can use different types of set math on it. So you can combine sets, you can map over sets, you can do various things with sets of events that makes this a fairly powerful paradigm for dealing with asynchrony in any platform. And then what happened was there was a project called Microsoft Project Volta, where they were trying to make C# compile into JavaScript. And I don't know where that ever went, but the logo for Rx is actually that logo. The Project Volta logo is the Rx logo. And the thing that came out of it was they had to port rx.net, because it was very popular, over to RxJS for Microsoft's internal uses, and they open sourced it. And so that was 9 years ago or more. And Matt Podwasecki did that work, so he's the creator of RxJS. And then we've been using it at Netflix for quite some time for a variety of things, both back end and front end. And Netflix asked me to rewrite it to, one, kind of conform to the proposal that Jafar Hussain, who works with me here at Netflix, had in front of the TC39. And also, two, make it faster and a little bit easier to read in the call stacks, so you can see kind of what's happening. So those are the major goals with RxJS 5, and I think we've accomplished those. But I mean, we can still push more performance out. We can still
and you did final release last year.
Yeah, last year. What is it
like 2 weeks ago? Last year.
It was like December or November was the final release. I think in November.
And then I just wrote a really thought leadery article. We call it thought littering. We thought littered on the internet. So Medium, the this.media medium, this DOT media.
So it's really what it is. She writes articles, and then I go through and I'm like, whoa.
Because I'm like, well, because Ben explained like reactive programming to me in RxJS, and he was like, and I was like, oh my God, it like reactive RxJS literally like it unites all of computer science so that everything can talk to each other.
All of it, yes.
It's like, it's revolutionary.
Yes.
Right? And he's like, that's kind of a, so I put like, it's a bit of a hyperbole, but I mean, it's true, right? It unites all of computer science. This is what gets me excited.
If you want to make your work sound really exciting, just have Tracy write an article about it.
Yeah, just explain it to me. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing I've ever heard. But yeah, it's a pretty good article though. So it's on the Medium.
Yep.
And yeah.
So how is, I do have a question for you. How is, you talked about observables in like the TC39, like how is Rx different from that?
So Rx is different in that Rx is a library that's kind of a reference implementation for what's happening with the proposal. The proposal, of course, is always going to be a little ahead of where RxJS is, because it's much easier to change a proposal than it is to change a library that people are using, right? But the older versions of Rx, for example, like the observer had methods like onNext, onCompleted, onAir. In the newer version of Rx, to be in line with what was with a proposal that's before the TC39, the methods are next, air, and complete. Instead of having a dispose method, which is, if anyone's done .NET development here, they have like iDisposable, and so when they ported it to JavaScript, they had a dispose method. We have an unsubscribe method because that was what was agreed upon for the proposal for JavaScript. So there's things like that, and then there's other stuff where we renamed schedulers that are, there's no scheduling in the proposal for.
Just made it more JavaScripty.
Right. So like the proposal that's in front of the TC39 is the bare minimum observable. So it's here's an observable. The subscribe an observer.
I thought those observables were slow. I thought that's where they got squashed.
No. There's well, it didn't get squashed. I mean,
it's still there.
Yeah.
Kinda. Why it's not broadly implemented, let's say, then.
I was trying to figure out if that was a pun or not. I was like,
No,
where's the pun?
not.
Where's the
It's
pun?
not a pun.
I was trying to think of one. I couldn't come up with it.
You know, I mean, the observable. I mean, the observable proposal is still on the table. It's not squashed. It was stalled a little bit because it had been tied to the promise cancellation proposal, and that's been squashed. That's been revoked by the same group that was championing it. So Google decided they had internal disagreements about promise cancellation, and so that proposal was taken off the table. And the reason it was tied to promise cancellation is because the observable proposal was looking at having cancellation tokens instead of subscriptions. I'm on the fence about that because as an implementer, it would have made my life very easy to have cancellation tokens, but I think the developer ergonomics are not there. If promises use cancellation tokens, then cancellation tokens would be everywhere because you'd see them in async await. You'd see them, you know, obviously with promises, fetch would use them. They'd be all over the place. So then, you know, having one so you can use it with observable would be, okay, no problem. I already have a cancellation token, I'll just use that. But when they're not being used everywhere, then you're looking at having to new up a cancellation token before you use an observable every time. And it's an extra line or two of code and it's kind of annoying. So
I think the other thing about RxJS is that if you start using it right now, you're going to get comfortable with using observables when it actually becomes native to the browser.
Right.
So it's like, it's the closest implementation right now. If
So
you
it's like a polyfill. So Rx is a polyfill.
I think that there are people that are using either Rx or there's another reference implementation that's much less popular because it's not really designed for wide use. Like it doesn't have a lot of operators. It was just like, here's a reference implementation. It was developed by Kevin Smith, who was one of the champions of the observable proposal at the time. And some people use that, but there are people that have taken it and they're using it to polyfill in proposed changes to event target. So one of the things that the browser vendors are looking at is, well, what if you could take some DOM element and you could say like document on click and get an observable of click events, right? So that the idea being that you would be able to model event target as observable instead of having add event listener and remove event listener, which is pretty powerful because it makes it much easier to do things like drag and drop and compose other kind of hard to compose events with observables than, you know, if you're trying to do that with imperative code and add and remove event listener, right? So.
We've done some cool things with it. We've made just before this, I think it was like 10 minutes, and we made something that it like actually added Konami code to my app.
Right, right. So like, Tracy's so funny. She's like, let's use observables. I'm like, okay, for what? And she'll be like, let's make this, when you mouse over this image, let's make this image change. I'm like, you can do that with CSS. Why would you use an observable for that? And then
for fun.
And then we decided we would do the Konami code. So
yeah.
So where can I go to enter this? I'm assuming up, down, down, left, right, BA, or what?
Yes.
Yeah, you'll have to give them the website. We'll be done. We'll deploy it like, probably soon after this. Yeah.
Sweet.
But it'll be on Lady Late. But it's kind of cool right now. I mean, we haven't like attached it to anything, but you can at least do it, and it'll tell you true or false whether you entered the Konami code right or not.
Right. We're partway there.
Nice.
Does it have good emojis?
We could make it, I don't know, we could make it rain emojis or something.
Oh, broccoli emojis and panda emojis.
Do they have a broccoli emoji?
There is none.
Whoa.
There's one right back there on the board.
Yeah.
No, we can actually just have it rain images, and it'll just rain that image because you took a picture of it, the broccoli image, and then like every time you enter Konami code, like broccoli rains down.
There apparently will be a broccoli emoji coming this summer, is what I've heard.
Nice.
In my emoji
let's
circle.
talk about RxJS and Angular, and you know it's pretty embedded in there, right? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, it's Angular's only dependency. Angular is using RxJS for a pretty wide variety of things. Everything from like form validation I've seen.
What about Zone.js? Is that?
So Zone.js it's a separate layer. Zone.js is used in Angular to detect when some async event has occurred, which means that something has probably been updated. And so they use that to kind of trigger their update logic. And there's actually a pull request for RxJS 5 right now that Mishko put in and I worked on with him that is meant to get slightly better behavior out of observables for Zone.js, but I don't know if you want to get into that.
No, I totally didn't mean to sidetrack you. I was just like, Austin was.
I thought that.
So
Yeah, you said that Rx is the only dependency. I was like, what about zones?
I think zones is kind of built into Angular technically at this point. I think you could consider RxJS as the only third-party dependency, I suppose, if I'm even considered a third party at this point. But
so I have a related question. So with Angular moving to semantic versioning, is that in the plans for RxJS? I know there's a lot of differentiation between 4 and 5. Is the plan moving forward for RxJS to adopt it?
It's solid semantic versioning. Like there are so many projects that use RxJS here at Netflix that, and we all adhere to semantic versioning that there's no way I could afford to have a breaking change in a minor version or something like that. So yeah, you're likely to see like a version 6 come out that has some minor breaking change in it in under a year. Like it's not going to be like this, this coveted major version, everything changes sort of thing. That's not actually even true with RxJS 5. It was a total rewrite, but a lot of the operators are still there. Like it's not, a lot of the semantics are still there. It's not hugely different, but major versions after this are going to be, the changes are going to be much more subtle. And the only reason we do a major version is if there was a breaking change. And I mean like any breaking change. If there was a small breaking change to one operator, we're on version 6. Right? Like it's not, like I don't want people to freak out if 2 years from now they're like, why is this RX10? This is crazy.
Well, another exciting thing is we're doing this.javascript January 28th. And Angular, Mishko's going to be talking, Ben's going to be talking, also React, Polymer, and Vue, and Ember. And they're going to be talking about just what's coming up. So Ben has been sharing with me some goody secrets that he's going to be talking to really amazing people about for Rx Contributor Days.
Yeah, we're talking about, kind of what the changes were, like kind of deep diving into what the changes were for RX5 and what planned changes are for the next version and why, and then, kind of getting consensus from the rest of the community that uses observables a lot to make sure that their needs are met. So
it's like two things. One is this.javascript is great because you get to hear Ben every quarter talking about what's coming up, and also Angular and all the other frameworks. And then the second thing is we started this thing called Contributor Days.
Oh yeah, I was talking about.
I know, and the first one is going to be February 3rd. So if you're looking to contribute and you've contributed already, it's people like Igor and Rob from Angular, a ton of people from Facebook, Slack, Microsoft.
Then we have Jay Phelps and Paul Taylor and OJ Kwan and Matt Pavliceki and these other folks from the RX.
Andre Stoltz. It's kind of like a mini TC39 for RxJS.
Yeah.
But just how to move forward. And I think it's going to be pretty amazing.
Yeah, it'll be good.
And I'm going to record it, and I'm hoping it's going to be Real Housewives of Silicon Valley.
We're going to bicker. Well,
dude, can we do that?
I'll think of some really good topics to get Mishko going.
Yeah, it'll be hilarious.
He's easy to get going.
You said that
I'll have him and Jaffer fight.
Have them do the what is it called? The Street Fighter.
Oh, Hadouken?
Thing. Yeah, Hadouken. I didn't want to say it, but that's okay.
I don't know if they can do that.
So you said that Angular. Oh, I'm getting that.
Say it again.
Echo.
You say that Angular what? I'm sorry?
I was saying that Angular, its only dependency is Rx. How does it, what is it actually using Rx for?
Well, I mean, it's using Rx for a variety of things internally that I'm sure I don't even know all of it, but I know that it uses Rx, I think, for some of the routing now. I'd have to have that verified. It uses it for forms validation, they're starting to look at having like cold observables from templates. So like in your template, you can define like, I want this event to occur, but it's going to, at runtime, actually create that observable cold. So it's in the proper zone and all these other things. So that's like an active issue right now on Angular. But I think that it gets used more and more. And like you've got ngRx, which is an Angular project, which uses Rx as like a Redux style store, and a series of other projects around that. So people use it for state management and a variety of other things. So it's because observables are such a primitive type, similar to like a function or a promise. You know, how deeply Angular core uses it, I'm not entirely sure because I haven't really dug through that code a lot. At Netflix, I tend to work on RxJS and Falcor and or like React apps over the last year or so. But the greater community tends to use observables an awful lot. And the two things have kind of been pushing the popularity of each other. I think that there's a lot of reactive programmers that are kind of excited that there's a framework that favors these things. And other than Cycle, which is a fantastic framework itself. But on the other side, like there's developers that have never seen an observable before that are new to it. And once you start using them, they're kind of fun. People kind of overuse them, I think, when they start having fun with them. But you know, that's obviously fed the popularity of RxJS as well.
So how much do developers working on Angular need to know as far as getting into RxJS to really like do their daily Angular stuff? I mean, would you recommend that they dive in and know it pretty well, use it here and there?
No, I think that I don't think you really need to know it. You'd need to know at least like the basics of an observable. You need to, so they don't do anything until you subscribe to them. Then it gives you some data.
You should always unsubscribe.
You should almost always unsubscribe from them. So just as a general rule, always unsubscribe. It gives you a subscription back. Like those basic things are all you really need to know to get started. The stuff you're going to want to know is, you know, how to use operators to compose various things, because that's where the real power of it comes in.
I think like to elaborate on that, it's the idea of, which again, this is what gets me excited. It's the idea of being able to take something from your existing code base and do very little refactoring, but be able to add like really cool features or functionality in just a few lines of code. Like, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it's
so like you're just able to do like really cool if you understand it and you're able to understand that RxJS is a language on top of JavaScript, right? Then you're able to like do cool things. And I mean, the stuff that Ben's able to do, like what's my favorite buzzword? Multiplex WebSockets.
Multiplex WebSockets.
In just a few lines. Multiplex WebSockets. Yeah. It's like shakshuka.
Yeah. Except for not as tasty as shakshuka.
I think one of the places that shows up, you talked about this a little bit, is like in the forms validation and form stuff, right? Like in the reactive forms module, and we got a form control that we're doing like value changes on, right? And you want to debounce that and stuff like that. I think people start seeing it in that case.
Right. Yeah. So that's one solid use case for Rx, which is like, you know, client-side rate limiting. So that's where I don't want to spam my server with a bunch of requests just because I'm typing in a form, but I want to have typing in the form actually request some data from the server. So then you can use like a debounce time, and it's as simple as just adding in that operator. The thing about RxJS that makes it nice is it's declarative syntax. So the thing that makes it hard is you have all these operators that themselves are kind of a domain-specific language to dealing with sets of events, right? But you know, you can have some like, here's my observable of input changes. I'm mapping it to the text values coming from this thing. I'm doing this, and I'm sending out some AJAX and so on. And then you're like, wait, I don't want to spam my server. So you just add a debounce timeline in there, and it just works. It's declarative in a similar manner to, say, HTML is a declarative language, right? If you add an H1 tag in anywhere, then all of a sudden you have big text wherever you added that in, right? If you add debounce time in anywhere in your observable operator chain. From that point down, the requests are going to be debounced from whatever came above it. So it's declarative. You can compose things very quickly and easily with it.
And now when we're doing this, and let's say we're doing it in TypeScript, right, we need to import these operators that we end up using, right?
Yes. If you want to just play around with it in playground mode, you could just say import Rx from RxJS and you get the whole shebang. If you're, I mean, I would only do that if you're playing around. In a production app, I wouldn't do that because it's going to import like all 60+ operators and you're probably not going to use them all. In Angular, what I do, and actually what I do with our other apps, even like React apps or anything like that, is I create my own module. And in that module, I say like export observable from Rx/observable. And then I just have an observable with no operators on it. And then after that, I say import RxJS add operator map, import RxJS add operator filter, and so on. And then you end up observable that only has the operators that you're using on it. And then everywhere I'm using observable, I import from that module I made. And what that does is make sure your bundler says, oh, let's only bundle in the observables that are actually being used, that we actually care about. The confusing bit, and this is kind of it's a bit of a failing of JavaScript at the moment, because we don't have like a function bind type syntax or extension methods like C# does, is that you end up having to mutate that prototype for every one of those import add operator so-and-so. Right, so you could end up doing things, and we actually had this in Falcor recently where I was doing that, and then the tests were importing all of Rx because like different operators are being used in the tests, and that meant that I missed importing some important operators in the actual production code, but it wasn't showing up in my tests, right? So there are some bugbears with that, and hopefully we can get the function bind syntax through the TC39 or something like it. You know, the maybe pipe operator or something, and that'll solve some of those problems. But overall, you really do want that dot chaining because it's what enables that declarative syntax that makes things so easy to deal with.
Man, that would be pretty sweet to have extension methods in JavaScript. I don't know.
Oh yeah, it's my understanding is that the hangups around it are people who are like, well, how do we say that this function can only be used as an extension of this other particular type? I think that Yehuda Katz had like an interesting thing where he was doing something using the namespace keyword, which has been reserved forever in JavaScript, to try to, you know, to try to like have some sort of declarative way to say what functions can be used with what type. But yeah, I think that's kind of where the function bind proposal is kind of stalled, is that they don't really have a great way to figure out how to attach it to a specific type.
All right, well, while we wait for that, do we have a jingle out there, something that can help us remember like what that import path is? I mean, I know it's pretty straightforward, RxJS, add operator this, but I always forget it. I put the operator after the add or before the add.
Look at Tracy for a cup.
Or something that can help me remember that.
A jingle?
I love jingles.
But we'll have Tracy write a jingle.
All right, perfect. Because I got to have a better nursery rhyme or something to remember that. I always, I don't know, come back to it after a while and be like, oh, what is this?
If you could do it to the Haddad's tune, that'd be even better.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, I feel like this is documented somewhere like the best practice as far as Rx. Rob Wormald would probably be a decent person to ask for that as far as like in Angular world. Maybe we could have the Angular CLI actually add operators for you.
Ooh.
What do you think?
Potentially.
This wouldn't be an AngularAir episode without giving Brocky something to do.
Yeah, like last week we didn't do that. We didn't do our CLI stand up and give him some action items. So, you know, that's good. Thank you for doing that.
I did have a slow week last week.
Let's do the router though. When's the router coming?
It's being discussed.
ngG route. ng destroy component. I need it.
You don't need to destroy components. Just do a rollback or unstage your commits or your changes in Git. Use Git for that. It's better.
All right, so we've talked a lot about observables, right? But there's these other terminologies that live within this RxJS space, right? Things like subjects and behaviors and stuff like that. How much do we need to know about that? And is there like an easy way to kind of, I don't know, I always find that once I start getting into that and I see these other terms and start trying to do the mind map of what's going on with observables and then take it to these other terms, like how they fit in, and it's like a lot to grok and take in. So I don't know if we talk a little about that.
The subjects are, I don't know, I could whiteboard it. Want me to whiteboard it? I have a whiteboard.
Yeah, do it.
As long as it requires 0 erasing.
All right, we're not going to erase your stuff. All right, so if you guys can hear me okay. So subjects are all over the place. If you ever look at the observer pattern, so the observer pattern, generally you have like a subject, and then you have this observer, right? And the observer, in this case, we'll just say it only has a next method on it that you can pass a value to, right? And what you do, the subject has like usually an add observer method, right? That takes an observer, and then it'll also have like a remove observer method. This is the gang of 4. You know, you can look it up on Wikipedia or whatever pattern. What you do is you can register multiple observers with a subject, and then this guy also has a notify, and you might pass the value. And what this does when you notify it is, well, when you add an observer, it adds it to this internal list of observers, right? It's a bracket. And what it does when you notify is it loops through this list of observers and it calls next on them with the value that you passed in. All right? So let me move you slightly closer. So this is what a subject is, and that's the same thing in Rx, but now I get an eraser. The only difference is we don't have a remove observer method here, and we don't have an add observer. Instead of add observer, we have subscribe. Right? So subscribe, we pass an observer to it, and it adds to a list of internal observers. And instead of notify, we have next, which makes it adhere to the contract of being an observer itself. And then for the remove, what we do is this guy actually returns a subscription, right? That has an unsubscribe on it. So when you subscribe, you can call unsubscribe. And that's going to remove it from this internal list of observers. So that's what a subject is in a nutshell. Now, where do observables come in? Observables are actually a bridge, usually between some subject and some observer. So you can compose a whole bunch of observers together. So if I wanted to take this subject, whatever it may be, and I wanted to transform the values it's notifying, I would have like a map, you know, or 2. Let's just have 2 maps in here. It's fine. And what that does is we have an observer for each one of those, and then it goes to our final observer. And this whole thing, an observer, all it really does is it sets up a chain, or observable, all it does is set up a chain of observation. So an observable is actually going to be used to kind of take an observer and tie it to some subject. When you create a new observable, even say new observable, and it gives you an observer, and then inside of here you create some producer, and you call, let's say if that producer is, let's say it's got an event listener. So you say p add event listener, which could just as soon be add observer, right? Like, what's the difference between add event listener and add observer? And then inside of that, we take that event and we pass it to next on our observer. So this is our observable. And then in here, we're also going to return some sort of teardown, right? Where we remove the event listener. I'm just going to shorthanded, right? Inside of there. So you've got your setup and your teardown, and this is really a subject. If you look at it, add event listener, add observer, same sort of thing. So subjects are all over the place. People don't realize they're using them, but the subject that exists in RxJS is actually meant for the act of multiplexing for the most part. Whenever you have an observable, since an observable, you subscribe to it, you give it an observer, and usually it's responsible for setting up some producer of data, be it a subject or whatever, and then tying your observer to it. And what that's going to end up doing is every time it creates a new data producer. And if you don't want to create a new data producer every time, then you need to multicast is what you need to do. So you need to be able to notify multiple observers from the same data producer. And so what we do is we use a subject, because a subject, when you subscribe to it, adds to a list of internal observers. And when you next something into it, it broadcasts to everybody. So that's where subjects really why they're really added to RxJS. So you can have functionality like share and publish ref count, these sorts of things. But yeah, subjects are observables on one side and observers on the other. But the thing about them is they've got this internal state where they keep a list of internal observers that you're notifying whenever you next into them. Does that kind of make sense? I felt like I rambled a little bit about it. But.
No, I think that's awesome. I think that's great breakdown, helpful. So maybe also talk about the HTTP module and how that uses it and what's going on there with observables.
So the HTTP module is really, I mean, all it is it is an injectable observable that you can use for, well, it's got a variety of ways that you can create observables from it, but basically it creates an observable that is an abstraction over XHR, which is XML HTTP request. And the reason that you'd want to use that over fetch is because fetch doesn't support cancellation currently. And what you want to be able to do in a single page app is if you're loading a view and you say, hey, let's load some data for this view, and then someone knows, nah, I'm clicking away from this view, I don't care about it anymore, and they go to a different view, you don't really want to execute all the logic that happens after that request comes back. You don't want the XHR itself, XML HTTP request version 2, will actually look at the headers coming back and be like, oh, this is JSON, I can parse that, and then that blocks your UI thread. There's garbage collection afterwards that also blocks your UI thread. And all for data that you're not using anymore because you've forgotten about that view. The user left and they don't care about the view anymore. So if you abort the XHR, it doesn't hit any of that logic. It doesn't even attempt to parse it or any of that stuff. The request comes back and it just drops it. And what we've got with observables is we're wrapping that XHR. So we're creating a new one, we're sending the request, and then if you unsubscribe from the observable before it's done, it will abort that XHR so it doesn't execute all your additional logic. So that's why HTTP is written with observables in Angular 2. It's because it's a slightly better abstraction, even though it's just for one value, for single page applications, because single page applications are long running and stateful, and you probably don't want to run all of your logic when you're done retrieving some data that you're not going to use, right? Which is fairly commonplace in modern apps. You can also use it for things like if you got your look ahead, you're typing and you're doing a look ahead, and you're sending an HTTP request every so often off debounced data entry in a text box. It's able to abort the previous request if you don't care about it anymore. Like if you've changed the data you're looking for, you don't need that one the previous one to come back. So that's why it exists the way it does.
And when we do subscribe off of that HTTP service, then something's a little bit different than that, right? Than our regular, the other subscribe, right? It's like kind of one and done thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I don't know. I don't know what's changed there. I mean, it shouldn't be much different. as far as the subscribe goes, unless they've changed the behavior to do some caching by default. I don't know if that's happened or not. If it has, I haven't had my eyes on it.
But I mean, just in terms of like if somebody goes and does HTTP get subscribe and they take their result, like their subscription is going to be completed as soon as they run that, right? Versus another subscription on a subject that's just continuously getting data stream back. Just
well, I mean, the thing about HTTP GET is it's not going to do anything until you call subscribe, and the moment you call subscribe, that's when it moves up the XHR. It sends out the request, and you know when the callback inside that fires, when the next event fires, then you've got your data. The difference between that and subject is basically that, you know, one is an observable that's going to new up an XHR every single time you call subscribe on it, and the other one is an observable that every time you subscribe to it, it just adds to a list of internal observers. So you could subscribe to it with a subject and then tell everybody on that that's subscribed to that subject what value you got back from the XHR. But I mean, they're two different Lego bricks, if you will. They're similarly shaped, but they behave differently.
Right. And that was kind of the point I was trying to bring up, was because like in the reactive forms, right, and you do value changes and you subscribe to that, the code inside your subscribe is going to continuously run for you as you get new values coming in. But when you subscribe to HTTP GET, it's going to run after the one call, and then you're done.
Yeah. So observables, since they're a set of values over time, right? They could be a set of no values over no time, or an infinite number of values over an infinite amount of time. So when you're looking at HTTP, it's a set of one value over some async amount of time. Whereas if you're dealing with, you know, like mouse events or something like that, you know, obviously anyone that's ever hooked up a mouse event and console logged it will see that it, you know, you get a lot of events really quickly as you're mousing around. Those are also valid observable shapes. One of the things that makes observables really powerful is they're all the same shapedness of the thing. So if anyone's into lambda calculus, their faces probably just melted when I said that. But the idea that you have this thing that pushes one value at you over time, it's very easy to compose things that are all the same shaped. Like, so that you have this, everything's a set of events, and you can have a set of speech recognition. You could have a set of mouse movements, a set of values from an array, which is, you know, like an immediate set of values, right? Like everything, and it doesn't matter if I give you, if your function takes an observable of strings, you know, whether or not that string comes from speech recognition or comes from a WebSocket, it doesn't matter. I just give you an observable, and you can do what you want with it. So that's where the power of it comes from. Is you could, you know, have an interval that flat mapped into you know, HTTP requests, and that's just, you're going to get a steady stream of data off of that. Or you could just as soon change it into WebSockets, and you'll get a stream of identically shaped data off of that, just depending on how you scrub it. So.
Somebody asked, do you know how we can make our library AOT compatible? Is there any special configuration? Is anything like
AOT compatible? Ahead of time compatible? I don't know. Make it ahead of time. With Rx specifically? I don't know.
I'm sure there's a delay, so.
Yeah, that's a question for Mike Brocky. How do they make their library AOT compatible?
RxJS is anything that you're doing with RxJS is AOT compatible. But the other libraries that you're pulling in may or may not be compatible with AOT, depending upon the information that's being published to NPM. So it would be dependent upon which third-party libraries you're using, whether or not it can handle AOT or not.
What about RxJS that makes it AOT compatible? See, I don't even know this.
It just that so there's nothing in RxJS that would need to be enabled for AOT. But any dependencies that are brought in, any ng modules that are brought in, it needs to know the metadata about them, which needs to be published to NPM, which you can create by running the ngC, the compiler CLI against your third-party library.
My brain just melted.
I love it when you explain things broccoli because you're like, confused about it.
Oh, it's stuff that I pseudo understand, not deep internally, but at least at a high level.
Right on.
Cool. All right. Well, I think now everybody's mastered RxJS, right? If they haven't, let's talk a little about your Rx workshop coming up and what you got going on with that. Kind of give us a rundown of, I don't know, how it came about. I'm kind of interested in how that came about, and then tell us all about it.
Well, me doing workshops in general started with an interest in, I do a lot of talks in RxJS, and when I do these talks in RxJS, I can only really scratch the surface. It ends up me explaining the basics of observables, and people getting maybe mildly excited about it, and then going and playing with it and getting confused and then quitting, right? And I would really like to be able to, or I really wanted to be able to dive into some of these topics in more depth. You know, whether it's talking about what subjects are, how to use subjects, or multicasting, or multiplexed WebSockets, or any of these other things. And with going to do talks, you can only really talk about like one piece of that. And a lot of the more interesting stuff, I have to preface my talk with, okay, so you might not know anything about Rx, but there's plenty of talks about that. So you can go watch those.
It's like the beginner talks.
Right?
He's sick of doing
I'm
beginner talks.
I'm gonna talk about this.
He wants to do the cool stuff.
Right.
Only get deep.
So, my wanting to do workshops started with that. The first workshop I ever did was the Angular Connect workshop last year, and it was really challenging. I'd never written a workshop before. You know, it was challenging, but it was a lot of fun, and I felt like I finally had an opportunity to share more about Rx, like more of my deep knowledge than I'm able to share at a lot of the talks.
How long was that?
How long was the workshop? It was
8 hours.
It was 8 hours. Yeah. It was 8 hours, and in all honesty, I mean, there's enough material on Rx that can go for a couple days and get crazier and crazier, right? But
just get drunk on observables.
Right. Let's get crazy reactive. But yeah, so the Rx workshop came about because Tracy was like, well, let me help you organize this, because I am not the most organized person. Tracy is the organized person. So we decided to get together and set up a series of workshops so I can,
it's
better
kind of
educate
exciting.
people about Rx.
I think one of the things we tried to do with the workshop was in the initial workshops that you were doing, they were very like lecture-based.
Yeah, they were very lecture-y, yeah.
And so what we've done is we've basically taken all of those and made them into videos. So anybody who attends the workshop gets like a bunch of different videos before. They can watch all the videos. I think it's a little under half an hour of just explaining things. Then you can go into the workshop and it's going to be very exercise heavy. So you just rewrote like the entire example repo, right?
Yeah, I redid the whole thing. So it's no longer specifically Angular based.
It's agnostic.
It's agnostic. We can do it in Angular. We can do it in React. But this specific set of exercises is just like browser and Node, and that's it. Because Rx it's basic, and once you learn the basics, you can take it and apply it anywhere. I've used it in Ember apps, React apps, Angular apps. Node.
When we were trying to play with Firebase, that hot mess that we're still trying to do.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's great.
But
it's great.
But yeah, it's right now I think there's like 25, 26 exercises, something like that. Mm-hmm. And it covers some things like animation. It covers all of the basics and merge strategies and trying to think about things reactively. Like when you're thinking about imperative code, you're assigning variables to variables, right? But when you're dealing with observables, you have to realize that any variable in your system is technically a stream of values over time. So you try to compose those things together. So we try to dive into how to do those things. There's stuff around reconnecting multiplex WebSockets and all these fun things.
And the bounce
requests.
one. I'm excited about the bounce.
Yes, I've changed one of mine to have bouncing ball animations that Tracy's very excited about. So
it's easy to entertain me during these things.
Yeah.
But no, it's exciting, right?
So you talk about there's some videos that people can start watching right before they do it. I mean, is this something they can come into and go, okay, I know nothing about RxJS. I can take this workshop and be up and running with it, or am I going to be a little lost? Should I do some prep work?
So the prep work really is, I mean, to help people with kind of the more simple things like what's observable of do, you know? So I don't have to expend, you don't want to waste valuable time in a workshop explaining those sorts of basic things. So that they'll cover that. Arrow functions, could use a lot of arrow functions just in case somebody doesn't quite understand that, because some people haven't been able to use that in their apps at work, right? You know, they cover, you know, how to create an interval and that sort of thing with observable, so we can move on to more advanced topics in the workshop.
Cool. Okay, so there's a website for this. People can sign up. What are the details on this specifically?
RxWorkshop.com. It's on Twitter at RxWorkshop.
And we created a discount code for AngularAir. So all lowercase AngularAir, and you get $50 off. Our next one is Thursday from 8 a.m. Pacific to 4, I believe. And then we're having one in person in March in the Silicon Valley, and then we have another one online, I think in April or so. So
yeah.
Or May, maybe.
It's good. I really like these events. I feel like I've gotten a little better at it over the last few workshops. And one of the things I like about it is usually I get a chance to hear from people what they kind of want to learn, and I do try to make special effort to cover those topics or answer their questions.
Like if it's all Angular based, then usually do examples of observables in Angular.
Right, and Tracy actually devised an ingenious way for people to ask questions during the workshop without having to ask it in front of everybody. Some people
I thought you were going to talk about tattooing your face.
Not tattooing my face.
So two ways.
Too.
Number one is there's the Slack channel, and you get access to Ben after, so that's nice. But last time I was like, okay, if everybody asks questions, whoever asks questions, if you can tattoo his face.
Yeah.
I mean, we got one tattoo on your face. I mean, a lot of people ask questions, but I don't think anybody it just got them excited.
I don't know if that was what I was talking about. Is so? They can ask questions over the Slack channel, and
yes, that too.
Tracy will tell me what the question is, but she doesn't tell me who asked it. So if somebody's
don't be shy.
Yeah, somebody's a little shy to ask a question, and we got a lot of really good questions that way. So I like it. I get a huge kick out of it. I like seeing people get excited about it. Some people get frustrated and angry too.
Can we sing a song? Let us know when we can sing the Angular song.
Okay, you can sing the Angular song in one minute here. Right. So yeah, well, I think that as evidence of today, you got a really good presentation deal. You're really good at teaching us and showing us and walking through the stuff and explaining it really well. So I think absolutely it's a showcase for the fact that your workshop is something that
people know. In the workshop, I actually type, so it's legible. It's not.
Because this was flipped around too.
All right. So we got better font, right, in the actual workshop.
Yeah,
cool.
Much better.
All right, so let's wrap this thing up. We're gonna do some picks, but do you want to sing first?
Yeah, we'll sing first.
All right.
So this is a wannabe Spice Girls, okay? So tell you what I want, what I really, really want.
So I'll tell you what you want, what you really, really
want. You know
want.
the words.
Yeah.
I wanna really, really, really want to zig zig.
If you want Angie to forget the past.
If you want components, better make them fast.
Now don't go wasting my precious time.
Make sure your app compiles and you'll be just fine. Okay, we're done. Enough torture.
Print it, put it on wax. The cell is puppy.
One Angie two. Wait, better forget the past. If you want components, better make them fast. Now don't go wasting my precious time. make sure your app compiles. And see, he's embarrassed because he wrote the lyrics with me.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you just wanted to ghostwrite it and have somebody else, you know, to play it.
Yeah, that's probably best.
Most of the videos of me giving talks on the internet include singing. I realized that the other day.
Mike's worked with me before. He knows that I'm ridiculous.
Yes, it's fabulous.
Ben loves to sing all day long.
Loves it.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's get to some picks. I don't know if I probably didn't tell you guys that we do these picks at the end of the show, or maybe you did know. If you got something you can shout out, I mean, you can let us know. So Ben, Tracy, you got anything you want to kind of plug? Could be anything, tech, non-tech, whatever.
Did Wasim ever open source the Google Home thing?
No.
So
he's so popular on these picks.
We'll have to link it, but Wasim, and I always murder
Menakaniko, Wasim Shagam.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Wasim Shagam.
Menakaniko.
He's if you look on Twitter, there is he made a Google Home app that you can ask questions about RxJS, and it will read back like operator definitions and stuff to you. It's really awesome. So that's my pick. I think that's amazing. Other than that, NG Cruz.
Oh, that's your pick?
Yeah, NG Cruz.
Yeah, you're going to be speaking. Justin's going to be speaking. Broccoli's going to be speaking. So we have like a ton of different speakers. And if you want to come chill out for like a week on a cruise, it's actually the same price as going to a conference, if not cheaper, because all the food's included and everything. So that's fun.
Yes.
Maybe we can get Ben to do something weird. I mean, I'm sure that will happen.
Yeah.
What are my picks?
Plus there's sun and palm trees. I mean, Caribbean.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do a pick on a beach. So I went to Key West recently, and I love traveling all over the world, but I was actually really surprised that, like, in Key West, Florida, you have this amazing beach called Bahia Honda, B-A-H-I-A, space Honda, and it's, like, the most beautiful beach. Like, if you want to go to the Maldives, great. You can go to Bahia Honda, and you can, like, walk out the water. It's so shallow forever. Like straight up deep into the whatever, and it's like it's just as good as going to the Maldives. So I would recommend going there. And I'll plug this.javascript too. So if you go to this.co/javascript, every quarter we're doing this sort of like state of things in different frameworks and libraries. So the first one's January 28th. It's going to be amazing. It's on a Saturday, so people don't have to take time off of work. Check it out.
Cool. And we're going to have a show coming up on, we're going to talk about NG Cruz, and also going to talk about the contributor days at one point. I think we're doing a show on that. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
NG Cruz is going to be, Jeff is going to be on it. Jeff Cross, and then I think a few other folks. So because he'll be doing our keynote for NG Cruz.
Cool.
We get him to do weird things.
Yeah, he's usually game for weird stuff. Usually involving his beard.
Yeah, he when he was on recently, he made me break out my garden hose. I don't know. I wasn't going to do it, but something about Jeff just kind of brings it out in you. I don't know.
Hey, do me a favor and go out and get your garden hose. I
think that's how it went. I think he, yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
Oh my
Internet doesn't lie, right? It's out there somewhere. Austin, what do you got?
Actually, don't have anything today. I used them all in my last show, I think. But I'm going to unsubscribe now.
Mike. Mike, you got something, Mike?
Yeah. I just signed up for Dave Getty's Flexbox tutorial. I just signed up for that, had that in my inbox, started reading about it, picked up a crossbow, going to attack some zombies, protect myself, learning Flexbox. So it looks pretty creative, and I'll be looking forward to reading through that later today.
That's really cool. I was just messing around with that, the new Flexbox stuff in Angular. It's pretty awesome.
Pretty cool. All right, my pick is a Netflix original series called Hip Hop Evolution. Pretty big hip hop fan, and got stuck watching that last night and got to sleep pretty late. So check that thing out.
Well, I've got Netflix picks. My Netflix things that I've watched recently were really good were The OA, which is it's a really weird like sci-fi mystery series that's about I think 8 episodes long, and then there's another one called Glitch, which I think was filmed in Australia, and it's 6 episodes long, and that one's really crazy. It's again, it's kind of sci-fi-ish. Basically, like, people in this town like crawl up out of their own graves, even if they've been dead for like 100 years in perfect health, and there's like a mystery as to why they did. So, you know, it's pretty crazy, but I like it. It was really good.
By the way, for those of you who are wondering on the questions, is the Slack public for RxJS? The this.one is private for your events, but is there a public RxJS that people can join, or is it just for the team?
No, it's just for the team. Slack actually uses RxJS. So actually the Slack app that everyone uses has RxJS 5 in it. But yeah, that one's private. They don't want us abusing the bejesus out of it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Mike actually has one more pick that squeezes this thing in.
Yeah, I just want to look for questions on Twitter, and I just saw that Webpack 2.2 final release is out. So FYI, Webpack is now final.
All packs.
Congrats to the Webpack team.
All the packs.
Gonna make a Webpack song.
Give us those packs.
Cool. All right, well, thanks a ton to our guests, Tracy, Ben, for coming on and enlightening us on RxJS, and good luck with the RX Workshop. Again, that's rxworkshop.com. Thanks for the code AngularAir that people can get a discount on, and check that thing out and get to observing. Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. We'll catch you next week.
Thanks.